So what I'm going to talk about today is, as I mentioned, product excellence. So that was Google-wide initiative. We started a few years back. And as of recently, we are authorized to talk about it outside. So I gave this same talk a few weeks back in the London Product School, which is happened that I was in London. So I hope this is something that you would like and you would be able to use in your day-to-day job or just expand your horizons. What we have done at Google is, when you think about the history of Google, we started officially in 1998, unofficially in 1995 in a dorm room. We were a bunch of smart people at Google at the time who wanted to build cool products that do cool things for people, and we've been very successful, and we launched a series of products at this day and time. We are more than 60,000 people across the globe, more than 50 offices, and we have more than 100 products that collectively serve billions and billions of users. So what happened from the start was, it's like, we have engineers, they know what to do, they are super smart, they will build smart things, and it will work. And for many of our products, for many years, we have been doing it that way, and we have been very successful. However, as we have been scaling, when we reached about 35,000 people, we realized that it doesn't matter how hard you're trying to keep that culture and that focus alive, it's really hard to scale. And we have had some really big launches with a lot of investment, billions of dollars, years of work, super smart people, best of intentions, but they were not as successful as we wanted to be. And then I'm needless to say, one of the examples could be G+ launch. It was a great product. It should have done well. However, it didn't. So then we had to go sit down, have a moment of reflection. It's like, what happened? What could we have done better? So that's where product excellence started. We did a lot of internal research to understand what's going on. The teams that have launched successful products, what they have done, the teams that have missed the target, what went wrong at what point, and considering the diversity of the products at Google, from consumer to business, from small business units, internal products, to products that serve billions of people and everywhere in the world. So we had to come up with something that really works for everyone, because teams at Google are usually between 7 to 10 people. And the products, like something like Gmail, we have thousands of people working on them in different teams, and each of them owns a little part of it. How do you kind of give some sort of support and empower the Googlers to build a product at the same time that it scales and works throughout the Google? So that's the part, one part of it was creating a program, understanding what's wrong, and how we're going to fix this from organizational perspective. And the other part was, okay, I'm an engineer, I'm a product manager, I'm a UXer, whoever I am, I'm really excited, I want to build an excellent product, tell me how. So tell me how is the part that I'm going to focus the most today. Very simple question, how do we build products? So we have an idea, we are super excited about it. At some point, we are dreaming about something, and it's like, I want to build this, so it does this. Then we decide to do it, we put the team together, we start doing research, we design it, and we do it and deliver it. And for those of you who have been part of a product team, know that this is a very, very hard endeavor. It's really tiring and exciting. And at the end, you launch and it's like, oh, you reached the shore barely alive, but you're happy that you launched it. It's like, so proud we did launch an awesome product. Like, really? How do you know? Like, how do you know you launched an excellent product? Right? So if you think about this question, anybody has any answer? How would you know?
Data, how many people use it.
Okay.
You get good feedback on it.
Okay. From the back of the room? Please?
People are using it the way that you intended it for.
Could be.
People finding out ways of using it because it wasn't the intention.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
People recommending it to each other.
Oh, okay. Yes. So there are so many different things we can look into and kind of make a judgment. But how do you really know you've built an awesome product? So, these are the questions that are somewhat intangible, somewhat very numerical, but at the end there is no fixed formula. And to be able to answer that is that, okay, so how do you build a product? Is there a guideline? So one example I usually use is building an awesome product is like solving a puzzle. Building any product is like solving a puzzle. So some puzzles turn out to be awesome and some boring and, you never want to do it. So let's a good focus on awesome product. So it is like building a puzzle, putting puzzles together. So you need to have the knowledge to understand how puzzle works. And then when you have the pieces, put them together right. However, it is a rather complicated puzzle because not only you need that knowledge, you need the wisdom to be able to pick the pieces before you really start building it. So this is the part that makes product management really complicated. There's so many opportunities when you start with a product idea. You can, start from, okay, I want to build something amazing. I really want to be user-focused. So we start from UX, and then you realize there are so many compliancy requirements, and then engineering best practices, and you want to make sure you don't have latency. So these are so many moving parts that you need to consider and be aware of, and then pick and choose wisely, and then use your knowledge to put them together and create a good, complete your puzzle in a meaningful way. So sometimes you're lucky the puzzle is pretty simple, straightforward, with a few pieces that you can play around, and then worst case scenario, you have to replace one piece with the other piece, and sometimes you're not that lucky. Sometimes the products are really, really complicated, large. When you have billion users, when you have launching something super cool, if the technology is complicated, they could be very complicated. So we need to make sure we're not losing track. So yeah, you're thinking, okay, I get it, it's complicated, you keep saying it, I want to do this, I want to have my dream and, do it and build a product. I have an idea for a product. What am I gonna do? The most beautiful idea in the entire world. Right? So it's like, this time I want to build it right, I will start from a clean slate and then build everything the right way. I'm really committed. I have been in that product excellence presentation from Google. I'm going to just do it, and magic works. This is the most beautiful idea in the entire world. We start trying to consider what we need to, what each puzzle pieces we need to pick and how they fit with their idea, and we keep playing. And as we are doing it, we're writing the product scope, and it solidifies itself and shapes more and slightly changes. So from the most beautiful idea as a beautiful idea, as an idea, as okay, let's see what we can do, and then add more pieces, and it gets more complicated, and at some point it's like, let's just ship it. And then we'll see what happened, and we iterate, right? Like launch and iterate, that's how it comes to. Because at some point it gets so complicated, you're not even sure, am I doing the right thing? Who even cares for this product? So it changes, and this is what happens every single time. You want to start from clean state, and then, oh, I did it again, right? So why this happens? I'm going to use another example. This really resonates with me. So the reason this happens is that, we all start with the best of intention. I want to build a house, a beautiful house, and I'm smart enough to know, kind of having bullet points and tasks and items and delegating it the right way to the right people is the key. So you create your bullet point list. I need 4 walls, 1 roof, 2 windows, 1 door, 1 chimney exhaust, and then delegate it. And then you have deadline and everything tracked. Project managers, do the best of the job, and everybody comes to the table at the right time to put it together. And this is what you get. The window sizes don't match because there were no scope, and then, it's like, it just doesn't work. So this is where our main message started. So PE is culture, product excellence PE. It's really not a checklist. There is no checklist that I can give you or anybody that you can say, okay, I'm going to check all of this and this is going to work. And changing the culture is really hard. So this is the more complex part of Google the rollout of the program at Google that we worked on. And it has to do with organizational change management. Some of you might have heard of it, some of you not. But literally what it means is, how do you change habits at organizations? Because it is hard. There is field of organizational psychology. People get PhD in it. So it's really, really complicated. This is one of the nicest methodologies of kind of planning and managing change management. This is not exactly what we have done at Google, but this is by Dr. John Cutter. He has a book called Accelerate. If you're interested, I highly recommend. So there are different steps, create sense of urgency, build guiding coalition, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to focus, the part was step 5 according to this model, enable. So how do we inform, enable, and empower Googlers, or how did we do it to build a product? So it's like they're so excited, it's like, yes, I want to build an excellent product, just tell me how. And that was not easy. We literally had to go through this how kind of communication and messaging several times, and finally we came up with this, which is called PE framework. We needed it to be simple, and we needed to something that applies to a team of 5 starting a brand new product, and then also an organization of thousands of people. So what this framework is that we say the recipe, like the artful managing of building a product, the whole process, and coming to an excellent product really depends on if you can do these 4 steps and constantly be in iteration. First step is align. So it starts from, does your team really know what you want to build? If you ask every person on the team, what is the purpose of a product? Do they have answers, clear answers? And then if they do they match? Because what we start realizing is that our teams don't. Everybody comes up, somebody's new, and then, for example, do you really know what your team is supposed to do? Have you been handed or somebody explain it to you? So this is when I highly recommend doing the exercise of mission, vision, and then build principles. These are all exercises you can do, and have a very clear mission and vision, and communicate it and make sure everybody knows it and everybody agrees. Because if they don't, you're going to have problems and trouble down the road. Then empathize. What this means is empathize with the user. Understand to some extent what they need, what their problems are, because a product is going to be successful if you are usually solving a problem or offering something that lacks. I'm not really trying to thinking about these crazy, addictive, useless products that we all, at one point or other, have been exposed to or maybe addicted to. But usually, I put the focus that we are adding value. Maybe they add some sort of value too. But understand it and then measure. This is very critical. At the beginning, we talked about how do you know your product is successful. So this is like you have to measure something, right? Everybody answered with how many users use it, what is their feedback, what do they think, what are they using it for. However, it's really important if you're in the first iteration that you decide first step, like at the beginning, what you are going to measure. And make sure you build the product in a way that you can measure it, because when I joined Google, I was handed an existing product that was launched just a few weeks before I joined. And that's, as I was trying to onboard myself and realize, okay, how this brand new product performs, we realized we don't have any metrics. It's like, okay, so how are we going to build, which metrics we are going to choose, and what was the mission behind this product? Why did we build it? And then after a little investigations, I realized actually we cannot measure what this product was supposed to do because it's not built in a way that we can do it. So a product that was like 8 months work of 5 or 6 full-time engineers was like, okay, we have to put it on hold until we clean up other stuff that we need to, and then we have to rewrite. Because the work that we need to put in order to change in a way that we can measure some things is almost equal as relaunching it. It's a very unfortunate situation, but it happens. So be very careful that you design and decide and you're very clear about what you're going to measure, and then build it. And then again, align, go back. What you built, does it really fit your mission and vision? If not, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Sometimes you assume something, you start, and come back and say, oh, actually it turns out this way and it's better. Or no, we just lost track and we have to readjust. So just constantly going through this, and I'm going to talk about this framework briefly. So these are the main steps that we are going to talk about one by one. And the first one is know your users. Here we have an example of how we launched the product without really having a lot of knowledge about the user, and it went wrong. So Roberto is from Mexico. He had a Samsung Galaxy S4. Who remembers the first, when G Plus was launched, the auto upload, that when you take pictures, they're automatically uploaded to G Plus or, any photo app? Who does actually remember before that? That you could not upload, and if you have lost your phone, you have lost all pictures, right? It's just kind of telling my age. But, at some point people try to solve it. It's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna make it possible that you can upload to the cloud, and we're so cool, we're gonna make it automatic, so even if you forget at the end of your wedding day and you lost your phone with all the pictures you took, you will have them because we saved them for you. So what happened to him, he took his kid to the zoo, obviously took a lot of pictures, and by the time he was going home, he got a notification that all his data was used, and in Mexico, data is expensive, so people buy a package for the month, and they try to use it. At the end, if they finish, they have to either pay a lot of money to buy some more or wait for the next month. So it's like it was the first or second day of his data plan. So obviously he was really, really angry that without my permission, they used all my data for something that I might not even care. Like out of 100 pictures, I might want to keep 5. So how did this happen? Something like this. So our main principles are, when we say you need to know your users, you need to be very well aware of the assumptions. Anybody knows what curse of knowledge is? Any guess?
You assume you know, or you know a lot, so then you automatically start ignoring other important things.
Yep, almost. Anybody else? So what curse of knowledge is when you have a lot of knowledge about one thing, you can't really understand people who don't know it anymore. And then you keep talking about it or making assumptions that, oh, this is so self-evident. And then, yeah, they will understand, but they don't because they don't have the knowledge. And what happens many times is that, one of the reasons we had to really come back is, Google got back to building, in a pattern of building geeky products for geek. Because the people who build the products are geek. And then, oh, of course I can figure out how this works. Why wouldn't my users? But no, when you're building for billions of people, and some of the people who use our product literally are illiterate. They don't even know how to read and write, but they can still use it. So you can't really assume. Another thing very important is unconscious bias. That in many things from gender, from race, from ability versus disability, that comes to accessibility part, we have a lot of biases. And the worst example I can think of was this piece of code has been written for face recognition, and it became kind of a standard because it was a open source and everybody was using it on the products that they need. However, this turned out to be written and tested by very light-skinned people, and then for darker brown black people, it could not recognize face. I think that's really, really, really awful. And then why this happened? Because the people didn't even think, like, oh my God, it recognizes my face. Why would it ever have any issue with anybody else, right? And that's when we lose track, and that's what we are really trying to make sure we build it. And accessibility is definitely a passion of mine. More than 15% of population of the world has one way or the other some sort of disability. And we had a huge push for accessibility a couple of years ago at Google as well. And the only thing I would like to say is that think about it, try to be inclusive of all users, and then it's much, much easier to build accessibility in your product when you start. Build your product with accessibility than building accessibility in it. So it again goes back to my example of at some point you realize you have to rewrite it, just doesn't make sense to build in it, and it gets very complicated. I have some examples of this at the end, just if you have time, just remind me to show you. I'm just going to go breeze through. So using research models or modes that you can do to know your users. There are 3 different main categories. Analyze is look what data there is, like logs or research reports, white labeled reports, or market analysis. What is out there? What can you learn about your users? For example, a good example is when we launched AdWords to South America, to Brazil. It's a huge country, and it was just cricket silence. Nobody started using AdWords. And like, what is happening? Like any other country we launched, it was successful. Like nobody was using it. After a little while, there was this one bakery I think in Sao Paulo, I would imagine, that started using it, and it became so successful that within just a few months they had to buy more space or start, get more space and then produce because it was so successful. So it worked, but nobody did it. Why? So we ended up sending some people, like product manager, to the field to understand what's going on. And what we realized is that in Brazil, people don't have credit cards. So the way to sign up and use Google services was credit card, and they didn't have it, so they couldn't use it. So again, it's an assumption that everybody, of course everybody in the world has credit card. Of course everybody in Europe has Amazon. And when I was in Netherlands a month ago, I still cannot believe they do not have Amazon.com. Like they can't, they have to order from Germany or some other country, right? These are assumptions we always make, but they're not always accurate. So observe as usability studies, diary studies, field visits, just go and engage with your users. If you have launched the product, really look into how they are doing, watch and don't say a thing, see what they do. Sometimes we had this mentioned, sometimes you build a product to do something and then you realize people are actually using it for a completely different use case, and it's really cool, and you can, oh, it's a good idea, so this is something we never thought about. We can advertise for it or refine it so they can use it easier and more users can do it. And ask. So these are surveys, interviews, focus groups. This is when you get engaged and you have to make a decision at each step of building your product, which ones are the most economically meaningful, meaning would give you, with the amount you spend will give you the biggest and very meaningful return. Sometimes it's too early. Sometimes you can just have survey of 10 people or 100 people. Sometimes you have to survey millions of people. So it really depends on what stage you're at. Any questions?
How does Google kind of base the user interviews and getting that kind of feedback from people? The ad platforms, are you reaching out to your ad partners and saying, hey,
yeah, it really depends on the product. Yeah, sometimes we have businesses, and then we have account managers who have these conversations and collect the information. Sometimes, who has noticed when using a Google product, whether it's on phone or laptop, there's this little thing popping up on the side, how satisfied you are with your product, and you ask a couple of questions, right? That's a survey, we call it HATS, Happiness Tracking Survey. That's one way. We literally launch it to people and rate, and then how do you do? And then it's really important to know that kind of survey to be very, very smart about how we ask the questions, not to lead, and also have a specific focus on what part of the product performance we can collect information. And then we have these super cool quantitative research analysts that they review the results and tell us if you work on latency or on this or that, user happiness will increase by 11%. And you do it and it increases by 11%. So when I first saw it, it's like, oh, this is like, no, it can't be. It's like, you say 11, but your 9 to 13 is like, it's just like, but then when I looked at the numbers, it's like, it really works that way. So doing these things right is very important. So next step is critical user journey. And this is one of my most favorite parts because it just makes so much sense. And like, how could we have not built products without this in mind? So what critical user journey is, it's what it describes the path users take to achieve a goal. So let's use an example. So you want to find a music video, like, I don't know, latest song by Adele or something, and you want to save it to listen to it later. So what do? I pick up my Android phone. How many people here are Android users? Oh, good. I was in London office. I presented this, and literally like one person, I'm like, okay, we need to be more careful. But I think Android is a lot more common in US than in Europe in general. So what do? You pick up your phone, and you first, you have the authentication, fingerprint, it recognizes you are, and then it opens up, and then it's like, okay, Google, I want the latest Adele song, and it goes to voice recognition, and from there it goes to search, and then from search it goes to Chrome and shows you the search results, and then you click on the video and it goes to YouTube, and then you want to save it, and you don't have an account, it asks to sign up, and you sign up, and then for sign up you go to Chrome to sign up, and then after you sign up, create an account, you go back to YouTube and finally save it because you're in subway and you don't have your headphone and you can't listen to it right there. So as you can see, there are many, many, many steps that you have to go through, but do you really care who is this VP of search versus YouTube and how big their egos are and how large their organizations are that are usually thousands and thousands of people? Not really, right? As a user, I want to do it the easiest, most seamless way with the least number of clicks and as easy as possible. However, apparently, at some point we have lost track of this, and then we were trying to going through each of these steps, this is a very shortened version of it. Every one of these, like YouTube is doing their YouTube stuff really well. Search is doing search pretty well. Chrome is doing Chrome pretty well. And then it's like, oh, for added security, we will have this extra click here because, it increases security by such and such %. And then, let's go back here and not risk it. And then what happens is that at some point we decided to count the steps that a user, brand new user, needs to take a video and upload it to YouTube. More than 90% of users going through this process dropped. And YouTube is supposed to be one of our biggest cash cows to make money for us for advertisement. And the way you make that money is by people to upload videos. And the process you have given, the user journey for users is something is so terrible that maybe just a few % of the users who attempt will do it. So how bad is that, right? So by now, YouTube has been on it with we have the cross the teams collaboration, and they have done amazing advancement in this whole thing, and it's much, much, much better. But this is an example that when they realized it was like, you could not even imagine that this is that bad. So I told you, it's complicated, but the way we can kind of navigate and not bump into an end result like YouTube is to have a map and just the navigation technology, whatever that is. Just so kind of know the road, define where you want to go, and then have some sort of navigation that tells you at every moment where you are, or every so often you check and make sure you're on the path, or at least know where you are, even if you're going off path for whatever reason. So that is what critical user journey is. That's how it works. Kind of define the role of users who are using your product and their goal. Who is using your product and why? So let's say at Google we have this internal product that is for looking at your finances from salary and then benefits and how much you've made and bonus and all this stuff. So like a manager can go in there as a Googler and look at their own package and how much raise they got and how much stock they have vested and how much they have left. They can go as a manager to like first degree report and then allocate and adjust when it's time for bonuses. And they can go through their organization, like a VP, for example, can go and see what is their budget and how much they have. So there are many, many different roles that this individual can take depending on what they're, who they are acting for. And then they might have many different goals, just to look up something, to adjust it, to redistribute, to correct, to get a report, or whatever that is. So that's the dynamic system. And then, but it gets really complicated thinking about, okay, what is really a critical user journey? There are so many things that so many people can do with my product. How am I going to do it? How am I going to organize it? When you start writing these down, so you might come to a lot. So we had some, we had to really process through this and come to this point that yes, we can look at critical user journey through scope, and then what is the, really low level, very easy to reach goal, and then what is really the high level, what you want to accomplish. For example, here, the user goal is financial independence. So if you want to reach that, what does that mean? It means your assets and income is significantly greater than your liability and debt. right? That's what financial independence is, and that's the overall goal you want to achieve. But in order to reach that goal, you have to make sure you're decreasing liability and debt and increasing income and assets. And then in order to do that, you probably need to identify what assets and income you have. You need to itemize them. You need to track them. You need to make sure how much interest you're paying and all this stuff. So there are different levels that you need to accomplish something that they will contribute to your goal. Another way of looking at it is by frequency. There are two different types of critical user journeys. One is toothbrush. Larry at some point has said, one of the most products launched ever in the world is toothbrush because every user uses it at least twice a day. Which I guess that was way before Facebook, that I had to delete Facebook app on my phone because I was like, I wouldn't even think. I would grab my phone and first thing I go on Facebook. So people use it probably more than twice a day. So for that story, for example, we need to have daily reminders and decision making and like, do I really need this like extra fancy coffee every morning, or can I go to office and, make my own cappuccino, or, timely payments of bills every month. So these are, toothbrush means like, the user journeys that happen very frequently, daily basis, or just very frequently. And then we have pivotal, infrequent but important journeys. For example, setting up saving account, making sure, remortgage your house, and then you find lower interest and better interest rates, or plan significant expenses ahead. If you want to buy a car, plan ahead, make sure you weigh your options, for example, and get the best deal. So when you are through that journey of reaching financial independence, there are these two separate ways that you have to look at and consider. So then think about it for any product you have and how your users deal with it. Pivotal journeys are rare. Usually, sometimes they only happen once, but it's really, really important that they happen. Can you think of a pivotal journey for a product that only happens once, but if it doesn't happen, it just doesn't work? What could that journey be? Signing up, right? For the credit card or for any service. If you can't sign up, even though it's one time, it's just you can't do it. Or one thing we had, like, do you remember a few years ago how hard it was to retrieve Gmail password? There was literally probably almost no way. So they're very rare things. And my favorite example from my professor at the university was a very different conversation, but it stuck with me, is that a car, like let's say you have a car with 150,000 miles on it. How many miles did you drive that car in reverse? 2? But could you imagine having a car without reverse? Right? So it's very, very rare, but without it, you can't build a product. So be very careful. Make sure you have considered them. Make sure you're aware of them. Make sure you create an easy experience for them, because if they break, if a user forgets their password and they cannot come back in, it's really, really frustrating, especially if they have all the pictures saved in there and the communication and everything. So these are the ways we have to really be careful and consider and, in order to prioritize. Any questions? Okay, so next step naturally is prioritization. So you've identified all critical user journey, you know different focus levels, and then where to kind of put each level of goals and how they fit together. For example, going back to that YouTube search example, kind of YouTube team needs to know they have all these videos, and then the authentication team needs to know how to correspond with YouTube app to authenticate you, but then also overall experience, that what is it that the user wants to go through and what is the best path for them. How are we going to prioritize? How are we going to know which step or which of these journeys are the most important ones? Let's say, for example, your product is the map of the road in a city, and you have done some evaluations and identified the bugs you have. You have done the bug review, and the size of the bugs correspond to the severity. Like, I don't know how you do it at your organization. If there's something broken and needs attention, for example, P0 means the system is down. The SLO for it is 1 day. You have to fix it within 1 day. Then P1 is something that impacts the majority of users, very important, but of course, not P0, you have to resolve it within a week. Then P2, P3, P4, and P3 and P4 usually never are resolved. So you have identified all those, and then you have done an assessment of your critical user journey. So that blue line resembles your critical user journey, and you've identified some potholes on that way. And you're so excited and you want to fix your product. How are you going to do it? Which bugs are you going to tackle first? Louder? First, critical user journey. What causes the largest bottleneck? Okay. Any?
Most users drop off.
Okay. So if there's a pothole that if somebody falls into it, they die, even if it happens once in a million, you probably need to cover that hole, right? So, but it depends. You might have a pretty bad bump on another road that barely anybody ever goes through, and then you might have very minor bugs in the critical user journey, all these road bumps that you go every day from home to work, and it's so frustrating, and really every day kind of like it is another paper cut. So how do you do it? So our recommendation is that, yeah, if there is a deadly pothole, probably, fix that one so you don't kill anyone. But then put your focus on critical user journey. It could be very tempting to solve some of these like P1 or P2s, because you know how to do them, your team wants to do it, it's super cool, it's the feature you have created, and you're so committed to, but overall they might not really change anything in user experience because majority of users don't even use it. So this is kind of the game you have to play in your mind to decide which ones to focus, which ones to build first, which ones to attend to first. Any questions about that? Okay. So next one is pitfalls. This is fun. So what pitfalls are, these are not necessarily bugs, but they're experiences that just are annoying. And then users see them and it annoys them when they're working with your product, and they happen more than we want to admit. But when you see this, I'm going to go through them real quick. When you see them, you cannot really unsee them. So if you see them once, hopefully your product will never come up with one. So one is user choice. So here you want to share. And what you see is the list is alphabetical. How really unhelpful. Right? When was the last time you shared a picture with Bluetooth? Right? So you need to be very conscious. Like, give users a meaningful choice. Next one is navigation. You received an email and an Excel document somebody shared with you. You looked at it, and you're not sure if you click back, are you going to go back to Drive because it shows you Drive, or are you going to go back to your email? And this was actually a bug that we had to solve because it's confusing. If you open from email, there's a 99.9% chance by back you mean go back to email, right? But still, you need to have probably the option to go to Drive for whatever reason, but you need to be very clear about it. So next one is feedback. What is happening here? They're asking me to add a new password. I haven't typed anything and it already tells me it's too short. Like, okay. Consistency. So what happens here is we have the same icon on the same page. Here it shows auto awesome. And up there, if you click it, it's create new. It's don't do this. Okay, it's bad. Language. So when you are trying to save a contact, the first line on top is phone only unsynced contact. What the hell does that even mean? Like, what do I care? Like, telling me the phone number that I haven't saved yet is unsynced? Like, thank you so much. So don't give, like useless information or very confusing that they can't even understand what exactly it means. Internationalization, this is awesome. So I speak a few languages, and imagine my phone setup is in German, and I'm sharing a document with you, and you receive the notification that Sarah shared a document with you, except it's all in German. Because I shared it from my German setup as wrong, so you have to really be careful the language needs to be the language of recipient, not the sender. When you're communicating, Sarah shared a document with you.
Can I just tell a story? That
Yes?
happened to me. So when I went to Puerto Rico, I used Uber, and when I came back, ever since my emails have permanently from Uber been in Spanish.
Do you at least speak Spanish?
There's not enough to read the entire email.
It's bad. It's bad. And then I have the same experience when I travel. I travel a lot. Google, I think they solved the bug, but because when I would go to Google flights or hotels check, at some point it's decided I was in London and it chose pounds and I could never bring it back to dollars. Another experience is I have 2 accounts on my laptop. One is my personal and professional. For some reason, my professional browser decided, just because I speak German, it's a good idea to turn in German because I was in Germany. And, there are things that happen and they're really not good experiences. So about performance, what's happening here? So I open this and I'm going to click on offer and I click and I go somewhere else. So what is happening here is that when those little icons are rendered, the formatting and everything changes and it shifts, and it's really annoying and ugly. So either don't even put them there, or just make sure they're preloaded and rendered before, and then you don't have an issue like this. Do I need to say more? And if you are building an English speaker and building a product and this happens, I'm really sorry for you. Like, it's really, really bad. But the truth is, when this happens, usually is internationalization, when you have, you can translate, and herzlich willkommen in German is much longer than welcome. So this is definitely going to happen. So be careful about checking your aesthetics depending on language. And discoverability. What is wrong with this? So anybody can tell what is wrong with this? Someone? No. No. What is this? This is supposed to help, for example, visually impaired people. And the way they can navigate is through text to voice. And they have to go through the torture of settings, security, to choose security, blah, blah, blah. Next, accounts, to choose, next, blah, next, blah, next, blah. And then they have to go through all that stuff to get to accessibility. This is not nice. It's just not considerate, right? Ergonomics. So this was before, we have changed it. See, edit is right there. You have to go click on there and edit. Then you want to browse and see who else is invited to the meeting. And by mistake, you click delete. And you cancel that. And now you want to save, you have to go all the way up back there. This just doesn't make sense. And now if you have noticed that if you use Google Calendar on your phone, there are like the 3 dot things that I think is a little silly to have an extra click for it, but at least it's organized now. Error states. I haven't even typed the current password and it's already yelling at me. We're sorry, but you've selected an insecure password in order to protect the security. Please click password strengths to get tips on choosing it. It's like, okay, calm down. I'm not even sure if I want to change it anymore. Right? So these are, it's just not nice. Somebody in red and they're yelling at you, really that's the feeling it gives. And this is very, very common everywhere. So any questions about pitfalls? Yes?
How do you guys handle pitfalls? So do users add them to a queue, and then people from Google have time to kind of knock them off one by one?
Pitfalls?
Yeah.
Pitfalls is usually something, they're not software bugs. They're just annoying little things that why? It's not going to be end of the day if that password thing is yelling at you, but why? Right? So this is the art of the team, the product manager and UX people and engineers who see this, think about it. Does this make sense? Is this a good experience? Right? And then when we have this, there's a common language you can say, okay, this issue is the error states, we shouldn't really yell at people, or navigation, This is the idea of having these pitfalls. So you can talk to your team about what they are. So next step, after we spoke about product excellence so much, is what are the product excellence principles? So we defined product excellence, or an excellent product is a product that has focused utility, simple design, and crafted execution. So I would like to argue, if you can create a pretty decent balance between these 3 in your product, you're going to have an excellent product. Anybody wants to argue against it? Could you have a product that is focused utility, it's really clear what it is for, Design simple, and it has a beautiful execution. You look at it and it looks nice.
Sometimes you have to trade off one for the other. You can't have one of them.
So that's the kind of find the balance point. But like, let's assume you magically found the balance. So this is how we, like, it was really, really hard for us to get into this. So like, what is product excellence? Like, how do you know a product excellence? The very first questions we asked. So if you have a product that has these, and then the value of having these and discussing this is, again, one of the biggest problems for product teams is that product managers' language is different than UX language and different than engineers and business analysts and everybody else. So the goal of the Product Excellence Initiative, one of the most important ones, was to give them shared vocabulary to these people so they can understand each other when they're talking about different matters. So with this, you can say, design is so complicated. Like, who wants to use this so that people on your team understand what you're talking about and why is it important? So measurements, who wouldn't be proud to show this and wait for a bonus after launching a product? 30-day actives means a user has been active and used your product within the last 30 days. So you have the new launch and this is increasing. Is this a good news? What could be missing? Yeah, it's like let's say 100 users register every day and only 20 come back within the next 30 days. So they register and drop. But it's such a huge number because you're, for example, Google, you have high name and people are anticipating using this product and they sign up, but they don't come back. So it's really important. There's this saying that you are what you measure. So if you measure the wrong thing, you probably are the wrong product. Right? So it's really important to decide and be very careful about what you measure and the way you design and decide on the metrics. Again, metrics have two, there are two questions that help you design. What is the goal? How do you want users to engage with your product? So 30-day active being such and such. And signal. What is it that you can observe? Or what are the things, sometimes it's more than one, that you can decide? For example, for the 30-day active, you had to compare new registration and like retention on top of adoption. Okay? An example, Sergey and Larry, right after they launched Google search, they had a goal. They want to make sure users find what they need on the first try. Otherwise, Google would have been like many other available really useless search engines of the time. So they wanted to create something that you can really find what you're looking for the first time. So, okay. Anybody knows how you can measure that?
Just to let you know, we're getting short on time.
Oh, okay. I have a few more slides left.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Yeah. So, means don't ask questions. So what they define is long click, meaning how long does it take that a user does a search and clicks on the first search result until they come back. Because if they come back 2 seconds or 10 seconds later, what does that mean? Probably it means they didn't find what they were looking for, right? So the longer it takes, or if they never come back, it means our results were on point. So you can define a framework. We have a couple different ones, like HEART, for example, measure happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. And these are very helpful to kind of have as a framework. But then you have to decide how can you measure happiness. For example, surveys, quantitative surveys are very helpful. Engagement, adoption, and all. Like these are, at least if you don't do anything else, do these because they give you really valuable information. And super is another one that could be used. And bringing it all together. So we always said launch and iterate. And these are the 3 principles. So the pie is the eventual scope of the product. And we want to pay attention to simple design, crafted execution, and focused utility. However, we have this concept of minimum viable product, means like just make sure it works and it does what you want to do, and then you will come back to it later. However, say, please don't do it that way. We have defined as minimum delightful product, meaning the very first minimum whatever you want to launch, make sure it is an excellent product. Because if you don't, and you keep doing that, what happens is like, okay, you learn something, some things are working, some things are not working, and naturally the next step is to improve those functionality, and in priorities probably you would never have a chance to go back to simple design and crafted execution. However, if whatever you launch is already well crafted and nice and simple design and thoughtful, you have a chance that the next launch, when you're adding a feature or expanding or building the product step at a time, you're going to have a delightful product. So the difference is viable versus delightful.